Greetings and welcome to From the Basement. In this Unity video, we're going to take a look at packages and assets in Unity, in addition to a quick look at the hierarchy and project tabs. Now, in Unity, if you want to use a resource in the game, it needs to be an asset. Everything that you want to use is an asset. Sound, textures, 3D models, materials, animation data, all of that falls under the umbrella of an asset. Now, by default, Unity does have a very small selection of assets, and you can pretty much see this exhaustive list by going into Game Object, Create Other, and there it is. It's not much. Now, you can also go into Component and see some of the basic components or script actions that you can attach to things. And the whole component system and how Unity functions as a game engine we'll go into in a future video. For this one, I really want to focus on the assets. So that's not really a lot of assets to be using into a game. So how do we get things into Unity? Well, there's a couple of ways that we can get assets in individually, one at a time. If we go to Assets, one of our options is to import new asset. If we select that, we can navigate to some location that has an asset and add it in. You can also bring it up on your file system and just simply drag the asset into the project area here, and it'll automatically add it in. There's a lot of ins and outs to that, depending on the type of asset that you're bringing in. So again, a future video on adding in your own custom assets. The other way is to import in a package. Now, a package is something that somebody else has already prepared for you that is a collection of assets. And this collection could be a great many things. It could include models, textures, animation data, sound, all of the above. It could just be scripts, really, whatever. Packages are pretty much how you distribute resources between projects and between people. Now, again, Unity does have a selection of packages out of the box. If we go to Assets and Import Package, we will see that we have a small list here of packages to start off with. Quick note about these Pro-only packages. That doesn't mean that you can't import the package. It just means that they're using script commands or functionality that is only available on Unity Pro. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything in there is useless to you. As in fact, when we get to working with terrain, I'm going to show you how to take the Pro water, strip off a couple of script components, and get something that looks a lot better than the basic water. So, just because it says Pro doesn't mean that you can't use it, just that you've got to be a little creative. Well, let's go ahead and import one of these packages so we can see what it's like. Go ahead and import the Skyboxes package. Please import the Skyboxes package because we will need to use some of these later, and it's a really fast package to import. After selecting Skyboxes, you'll get a quick decompress message, and after it's done decompressing the package, which can take a little bit of time depending on how large the package is, we will get this importing package window here. Now, 99% of the time, no, I'm not exaggerating, there will be absolutely no need whatsoever to mess with any of these options, and you can just immediately click on the import button. If you know that you specifically need only one thing, then you can do that. I could click on None, click on the Area Skybox, and just import that material, which, by the way, would give me an utterly broken material since I wouldn't be also getting the necessary texture images with it. It's kind of why I say, generally speaking, yeah, just leave it as defaults, hit the import button, and it'll think on it for a moment. You'll get a little progress bar here. And then once that is done, you will notice that in your project tab, you will have something new. Now, a quick note about the terrain assets folder I have here. I preloaded that before this video because that particular package takes a lot of time to load. And we'll get to where to load that in here in just a little bit, actually. So I just want to point that out. That was preloaded. You shouldn't actually have that one on your screen yet. Standard assets is the one that we just brought in. And so I can see my skyboxes here. If I expand that out, I can see that, okay, we've got a textures folder plus all my materials. If I go into textures, I've got more folders. And then in each of these folders, I've got different materials. So that's how you would add something in that's on the default list. Now, if you've got a package that maybe you personally created, or maybe you found it on someone's website but didn't come through the Unity web store or anything, you might have to import in a custom package. The Terrain Toolkit, which we'll be using when we get to the terrain videos, is an excellent example of this. In that case, you go to Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and then navigate to where it happens to be. I've already ran through this on a practice run, so I'm already on the proper directory for this. And so I would just simply open up this package and import it in. I'm going to cancel out of this. Don't worry about not being able to open a custom package. Like I said, when we get to the terrain videos, we'll cover where to find the Terrain Toolkit and how to properly bring it in. The final way for getting packages is to go through the Unity Asset Store. So I go to Window, Asset Store, hurry up and wait for it to load. And then I can go in here and find what I want to download. Now, again, remember, you must be logged in to download anything, even free stuff, because it associates what you download with your account, so that way you don't have to find it in the store again. Now, if you want to download, if you want to get something that's paid for example, maybe Daikon Forge, you will have, of course, a buy button here. After you have purchased something, this will no longer be a buy button, it will be a download or import button as appropriate. For something that is free, and I'm just like clicking on something pretty random here, you will have a download button. I'm not actually going to download that because I don't want this. If I click on this button, it would download the package, and it would assume that since I'm downloading this in this specific project, that I want to go ahead and import it into this project and automatically bring up the import window. Now, after you have downloaded something, it maintains a list of everything. So if you go to this button right here, it's like a little, kind of like a hard drive icon with an arrow on it, sort of, kind of. Click on that, and it's going to show you a list of everything that is associated with your account, paid and free. And unfortunately, I think everything is either not downloaded or fully updated. If a package has been updated, it will say, like, off to the side here, update available, like right here in this space. Unfortunately, I don't think I have anything right now that shows update available. No, I do not. So if the package can be updated, it will show it. If you have already downloaded the package, it will show an import button next to it. If you have not downloaded the package on this particular install yet, there will be no import. There will only be a download button. Also, let me come down here to sample assets because I do want you to import this package. If you go and view a package on the store that you already have downloaded, you will have an import button instead of a download button. Do go ahead and download and import in the sample assets package, which again you can find just simply by searching for sample assets. And then making sure you choose the one from Unity Technologies. Also, you are going to want the terrain package. And the best way to find that is simply to go to the Home category and look at Top Free and find Terrain Assets. Go ahead and download and import both of those into your project. Depending on your computer speed, this may or may not take a bit. These are not small projects. So this one's kind of small, 43 megabytes. Terrain assets won't take that long to download. Import's another question. The sample assets, however, is a bit bigger. weighing in at 150 megabytes. So, may or may not take you a moment. As you can see here, the decompressing took a little bit longer. Same exact thing comes up. Click on import. Now, definitely the sample assets and the terrain package will take longer to import than the skyboxes, which is partially part of the reason why I already preloaded the terrains on here. So I'm going to go ahead and time skip forward to when this is all done. And done. Now, after you finish importing in a package, the asset store is not going to automatically close. It'll just simply, the processing import box will go away. If I close this out, I can see now that I have my sample assets folder. Alright, so we have everything imported in here. Now, what's the difference between this project and the hierarchy, and what the heck is the scene thing? Because they're all kind of intertwined here. In Unity, a scene, you can kind of think of that as your game level. If you have used something like GameMaker before, a scene equals a room. It's a self-contained collection of game objects that the player is currently interacting with. Your main menu would be a scene. Your individual game levels would be scenes. Your credit screen might even be its own specific scene, so on and so forth. They're basically just self-contained collections of objects that are the players currently interacting with. When you transition from scene to scene, all of those objects in the scene get destroyed unless you have specified otherwise. And while that's quite important, we'll deal with that in the future. Now, the Scene tab shows you everything that is currently in your scene, which by default is a simple camera. Movement I will cover later, do not worry about that. The Hierarchy tab shows you what is currently in the scene that you are working on. So this particular scene just has the main camera. If I add things to this, like for instance, if I go up to Game Object, Create Other, and Directional Light, now I can see that I have a directional light in my hierarchy in addition to my camera. If I want to add something that I imported in, for example, tossing a tree out into outer space, I can go into Terrain Assets, go into Trees, grab bamboo, drag it out, and now I have a bamboo tree floating out in the great void, and a main camera and a directional light. I can just drag stuff out as necessary. From my project into my hierarchy. So the hierarchy shows everything that is currently in the scene. Now, what are these projects over here? What's this project tab for? The project shows you all of the assets that you have loaded into Unity that are available to be used. It doesn't mean that they are being used, just that you can use them. So I've got all of these different trees, I've got rocks that or textures I can use, I've got rocks I can use, or I guess more appropriately a rock I can use. If I go into my sample assets, I've got skyboxes that I can use. I've got all sorts of things. I've got characters that I can use, stuff like that. Doesn't mean that these things are in use, just that I can add them into the scene. Now, deleting works differently between these two tabs. If I delete something out of the hierarchy, I can undo it. I can Control Z. And all I did was hit the delete key, fairly standard. So if I select the rock mesh, I hit the delete key, it goes away. I can hit Control Z, and I can bring it back. However, on the project side of things, that doesn't work. If I go into my terrain assets and go into rocks here, and delete this rock mesh, well, Unity is going to be kind enough to warn me about it. You cannot undo this action. This isn't just simply deleting something abstract out of memory. This is actually deleting it off the file system, just for the project you are working in. If I've got multiple projects and I delete the rock out of one project, the rock's going to be perfectly fine in the other project. So this is only for the project that you are currently in. Doesn't mess with the package, doesn't mess with any other projects. But it is a permanent, irrevocable action. If I delete this rock out, it's gone. Notice it also disappeared out of my view here, but I still have the rock mesh object. It's just I still have the rock object here. It's just that because I deleted out the mesh that it was using, notice here it says missing mesh. I no longer have a mesh here that can actually be displayed, so I can't see it. Now, if I wanted to get that back, I would actually have to re-import the terrain assets package. I'd have to come back into the asset store. I'd have to go into my downloads list here. Come back down to the terrain assets and do an import. Now, import is smart enough to figure out that I don't actually need to re-import everything. It'll figure out fairly quick as it goes on. So it's still going to have to go through everything and think about everything, but it's not actually going to try to re-import everything. It's smart enough to know that, oh, hey, wait a minute. All you're missing is the rock. And it'll just re-import the rock. It still has to look at everything in the package, though. So it's not really recommended that you delete assets. It's not all that untypical to have a project folder in the gigabytes of file size that will produce a 10 megabyte web player project, because you only use a little bit of this asset package and a little bit of that package and maybe one thing out of that package to fully build up your scene. So in general, don't delete out things from project. It's an irrevocable action. You will have to re-import that asset if you do this. And that pretty much covers the package system. The asset store, as I've said before, this is a great place to go through and find things and pick things up. Like if you're looking for 3D models, you can click on 3D models. And if you're a cheapskate like I am, you can come down here to the top free section and see what's available for free. You can also sort by price, by the way, on the asset store. So that way you can see the free things, in a icon format like this. Or if you, want to see which are the most popular things, you can sort it by that and see what's showing up on that particular sort. So like say if I wanted to go to environments and see what the most popular environments were, I could, go through and find things pretty easily that way. And that's all I got to say on packages and objects and stuff. So on the next video, we're going to take a look at object manipulation. I know we didn't do much with those packages I asked you to download and import on this video. But in the next video, when we talk about actually, adding these things in a somewhat controlled fashion, navigating around through our scene and things like that, pretty much going to be using elements from all of those packages that we downloaded and got set up. So make sure for the next video that you have the sample assets package, that you have imported the default skyboxes, and that you have imported in the terrain assets package from the asset store. I don't want this terrain asset package. This has like almost nothing in it. I'm not even sure why they have this one. There's like one tree, 4 materials, and I think that's about it. We don't want this one. The one we want is from the asset store. And if you go to your downloads list, We want Terrain Assets version 1.04. This is the one we want. So make sure you've got those downloaded and imported in for the next video, and I'll talk to you then.